I want to start my talk with an overview of what technology looks like in 2019. In 2019, a bot called OpenAI beat the reigning champion of Dota 2, Team OG, 2-0 in San Francisco. In fact, the bot was so good at Dota 2 that the developers then allowed the whole Dota community to play against it. And out of the 7,300 games that was played against it, only 50 was won by a human being. That's not the only amazing thing that AI did last year. Earlier in February, a bot called Project Debater debated against a human being named Harish Natarajan, a world-class debater, on the topic of subsidizing kindergarten. And although human won that debate, it is amazing to think that robots have gone so far to be able to debate against a human being. The wondrous development of technology raises a very gloomy question for all of us, the young generation of the 21st century. What will be our future? Will we be replaced by AI? What degree should I take when I go to university? After all, what's the point of studying for 4 years only to get replaced by AI after you graduate? And the sad answer is, we don't know. If you think about it, 10 years ago, your parents probably would not imagine that we would have smartphones that are as small as they are right now, or laptops that are as thin as they are right now. The only thing that we know about the future is that it's unpredictable and it's ever changing. So how do we survive in a future that is unpredictable and ever changing? Two things. First, you need to be adaptable, and second, you need to be creative. As a mathematician, I look to one category of people who exemplifies this lifestyle in everyday life. Professional mathematicians. This is a picture of Terence Tao, a mathematician at University of California, Los Angeles. Professor Tao solves a lot of different problems from different branches of mathematics every day. Each of those problems are unique and have their own characteristics. So he needs to be very adaptable to the different type of problems that exist. But at the same time, he also needs to be very creative because he needs to come up with a unique solution for each of those problems. Well, Professor Tao resembles a more general category of people that are very creative and very adaptable in their lifestyle. We call these people expert. I myself am not a mathematics expert, but I get a bit of knowledge on how to become one from a field that is very close to my heart when I was in high school debating. In high school English debating, you are given a motion, say, this house would legalize prostitution. And you need to come up with arguments. So for example, in this particular motion, you could bring an argument regarding personal freedom. That is, every person are free human beings and therefore free to do whatever they want as long as it doesn't harm another person. And a thing that I observed when I was watching my juniors debate or training them is that juniors oftentimes have difficulty coming up with arguments. And so it's natural for me to question why. At a glance, the answer is very simple. Well, because they don't know that such argument exists. They lack the knowledge to build an argument. And because I'm more experienced, I have more knowledge than them. In the beginning, this seems very true. But then there's another event that makes me realize that that's not the whole story. So, as in the first week, we talked about the motion, this house would legalize prostitution, and the argument of personal freedom. And in the next week, we talked about the motion, this house would legalize recreational drugs. And if you think about it, the motion is very similar to this house would legalize prostitution. That people should have the freedom to do everything, such as using recreational drugs, as long as it doesn't harm another person. But my juniors, despite knowing the argument of personal freedom, is unable to implement it in this motion. Is unable to come up with it when the motion of recreational drugs comes up. So it appears to me that my experience is not only a matter of having more knowledge, but having another X factor. This is the X factor that I want to talk to you about today. And I call this X factor mental image. So what does a mental image look like? Well, if I tell you that I know an animal that is furry, that is four-legged, that barks, that bites, that is often called a canine, and that likes to play fetch, you probably guess that I'm talking about a dog. But if you have never seen any animal as a dog, then you probably will have a lot of difficulty memorizing or imagining an animal that have the specific description that I talked to you. You will also have a lot of difficulty memorizing the description of the animal that I give to you. It would look like, well, in a biology class, right, where your teacher gives you a list of things that you should memorize about an animal that you have never seen before, and it's very hard for you to memorize that list. But imagine you then spend a time with an actual dog. You then actually have a time to play with it, to care for it. You then actually could not only memorize the list that I gave you earlier, but you can actually generate new facts about a dog. You could tell me that it has 2 eyes, that it has 2 ears, that it loves to run. And so we call this whole integrated image a dog mental image. The whole conception, a lot of facts about dogs are all integrated in your brain under the word dog and under the image dog. And having a good mental image extends your capability even further, gives you another superpower, so to say. It allows you to imagine things. Well, if you have never seen a dog play a Rubik's Cube, I bet you can imagine a dog plays a Rubik's Cube. You could imagine how his paws would like try to spin around a Rubik's Cube and so on, right? But you actually never seen a dog play a Rubik's Cube. So you're actually right now doing a creative process. You're generating new information, new insights, despite you never seeing a real object or a real dog playing a Rubik's Cube. And so that's how you become creative. You become creative by having an expert mental image. And so in order for you to become an expert, like Professor Kharistio, you need to have this expert mental image. So how do you get one? Well, the first 2 things. First is you need to reconsider how you learn. When you think of learning, there are actually 2 activities. First is what we call the work of learning. These are the facts that you need to memorize, the concepts that you need to understand, and also the procedures that you need to practice in order for you to understand that material. But then there's also the how of learning. It's how is this information supposed to be organized in my mind? How does one concept, like for example a dog, relate to another concept, like what is a mammal? So those are the how of learning. Those are how you should organize and how you should learn something. And the thing about the how of learning is that it is extremely philosophical. It's different from every field to field. And in order for you to understand the how of learning, the best place to look at is to learn from other experts from the field. I actually have a personal experience. I never liked biology, and I never enjoyed it during high school. But upon entering university, I stumbled across a book called The Blind Watchmaker by Richard Dawkins. And in that book, Dawkins showed the wondrous world of how a biologician thinks. And through that book, I actually gained a lot of insights and a lot of lessons into how a biologician thinks. And the world of biology, a lot of facts that I learned in high school now become integrated and easier to memorize, easier to understand, because I understand how a biologician thinks. That is what I mean by understanding how an expert works. There are a lot of ways in the modern era where you can do this. You can, for example, go to your local library or browse online for ebooks. You could attend a video session, a video lecture on YouTube, or you could also attend a workshop if possible after the corona time. The only thing that is hampering you from not developing and not learning and not becoming an expert is yourself and being lazy. So begin and expose yourself early. So in the end of the day, let's return to our beginning question. Will we be replaced by AI? Well, the answer is no if you're an expert. If you are creative and adaptable, then you will not become replaced. So the question is, how do we then become an expert? This is a deeper question that all of us should think about. And to that, the answer is learn smartly. Think of how you learn and think of where you can learn from. Which expert I knew among my field that I can ask questions to, or how can I acquire these resources and this knowledge to learn and begin learning as soon as possible to get yourself as good as possible. I'm Gennesaret. Thank you.